Alright, so I was asked to do this comparison for you guys, A56 versus the 16E. Which phone should you guys buy? For anyone who's looking for a mid-range phone, you're probably, not interested in buying a old flagship. And yeah, I'm not against mid-range phones. Like I said, these are two actually mid-range phones that are pretty solid, but both phones have a pretty big differences when it comes to the pros and cons of each, as we're gonna see. You can find a 16E for $424. I think they're even a little bit cheaper on eBay. I think brand new you're gonna pay just a little bit more. And then an A56 you can find brand new on Amazon, eBay for around $400 as well. So they're around the same price point. So which phone do you get? What are the pros and cons? So hardware wise, you can see that the A56 is a much bigger phone, so it'll, if you have smaller hands, the 16E is a little bit more manageable. But of course, when you're watching content, you might want a bigger screen. It just, really depends on what you're looking for. And we'll talk about the camera setup later, but as you guys can see, you have a single camera versus a triple camera setup. The reason why this is kind of like an interesting comparison is because, is it worth the single camera getting the 16E if this has a better main camera than the A56? So that's pretty interesting. We have a matte finish on the 16 versus the glossy finish. I don't mind the glossy finish. We don't really get fingerprints. You have IP68 on the 16E versus the IP67, so you have a better water resistant rating. And as far as the hardware, I think they're both very nice looking phones. And you have one little hardware trick, I guess, with the 16E, the action button, so you can program it to whatever you want. I have it on the flashlight. But that's pretty much it for the hardware here. And I guess one thing to note is that the A56, of course, because it's bigger, is going to be a little bit of a heavier phone. Let's talk about the display. And if you guys hear any noise in the background, it is, raining. But yeah, so let's talk about the display here. So the A56 has a great panel. It's a Super AMOLED panel, 120 Hz HDR10 plus, 1900 nits peak brightness at 6.7 inches. It's 1080p 385 for the PPI with the Victus Plus display here. We do have 87.7% screen to body ratio. And overall, I just really like the colors. And I do prefer the punch hole over this kind of outdated notch that we have on the 16E. And the 16E, it does have a 6.1 inch Super Retina XDR OLED panel. It is 1200 nits peak brightness, so it's not as bright as the A56 outdoors. It does have a higher resolution at 1170 by 2532, and it is 460 for the PPI with the ceramic shield glass. It's also a very good display, but I personally prefer the A56 panel. I think it looks better color-wise, and then also it does get brighter outdoors if we're like taking photos and stuff like that. But yeah, guys, as far as like the overall panel here, I think the A56 has a better screen here. Now, one thing I will note is that since you have such a high resolution on the 16E, the icons and everything look a lot sharper if you get like pretty close up, because the resolution and the higher PPI, and plus it's a smaller panel. That's one thing I noticed. But besides that, I think the A56 has the better display here because it is 120 Hertz as well. So it does feel a lot smoother when you're coming in and out of these applications. Like just simple stuff like going into settings and scrolling feels a lot smoother on the A56. Guys, this is one of the major advantages of the SE4. Both these phones have a pretty long software lifespan, with the A56 getting a 6-year pledge, and the iPhone has also a software pledge around that as well too. Both phones are on the latest software, iOS 26. This is on iOS, not iOS, but One UI 8. And yeah, so let's talk about these specs here. We have the Apple A18 chip, 128 gigs of internal storage, 8 gigs of RAM. The A56 does have the Exynos 1580, 128 gigs. And I believe this version is also 8 gigs of RAM as well. Alright, so let's go ahead and just talk about the speed difference here. So because the A56 has 120 Hertz, it is the kind of like smoother device when you're scrolling and opening apps. The iPhone is definitely going to be a lot faster, and it'll be a lot faster down the line as well too. So if you plan on keeping these phones for, you know, the whole software lifespan, then the iPhone is going to be the smoother device down the line for sure. You guys can see. Now when we come into kind of like these basic applications, they're pretty similar in terms of getting in and out of applications. Not a gigantic difference, but it seems like when we're loading up kind of games. But yeah, in the Geekbench, the iPhone is going to score higher, and 3D Mark is going to score much higher. Actually kind of beat it there, but we can really see like that speed difference when we open up stuff like Temple Run. It's like games open a little bit quicker for sure. So I would say, yeah, if you're looking for, you want the most power for your money, then definitely the 16E. It's very powerful chip for sure. It basically, you know, this is basically a flagship chipset, right? But like I said, the A56 is very smooth. It's not a slow mid-ranger. The scrolling is a lot, it just feels a lot smoother. The 60 Hz panel is not bad on the 16E. It's not like it's a bad 60 Hz panel, but the animations just are so much smoother on the A56 here. But I mean, honestly, not a big deal, guys. It just depends on what you're looking for, because day-to-day use, A56 is fine. I would say, I guess if you're more of a power user, then I mean you're pretty much getting like a flagship chipset on the iPhone here, which is pretty cool. Now, when it comes to gaming performance, the 16E is going to be, again, it's the more powerful device in Geekbench and 3D Mark. The A56 is fine for casual gaming, but you know, since it's a mid-range phone, there's no like 90 frames or 120 frames, so it's just an okay device for gaming, you know, pretty much. And because the limited display on the 16E, you also are kind of stuck with the same settings as well, because you can only play at 60 frames. Even though this phone is, you know, more than capable of, you know, playing at 120 frames, the display is, you know, limited. So I would say gaming performance is going to be roughly the same. Again, if you're more of a power user, and we're talking about like emulators and maybe video editing, or the render times are going to be much faster on the 16E. So again, for power users, you should get the 16E. It's a much more powerful phone for sure. If you're more on the casual side, it really doesn't matter which phone you pick. And I would actually say for casual users, the A56 is very smooth because of the 120 Hertz. So it does have that advantage. All right, so if you are someone who is into the AI features, so here's the thing. The A56 has a better assistant. So Gemini is a lot better than Apple Intelligence assistants by far. It's not even close. The problem is we don't have the full Galaxy AI features. So if we go to advanced features, there's no Galaxy AI. It's intelligent features. We do have Object Eraser, which is going to work way better on the Galaxy than the iPhone. AI Select, Read Aloud, Best Face, but you don't have, you know, any of the other kind of cooler features. But a lot of the essential ones, like the circle to search is here, and like I said, the Gemini is like miles ahead of Apple Intelligence. The Apple Intelligence, you do have, you know, visual intelligence on here. You also do have the it's downloading the thing. But you have visual intelligence, you have the, you know, Apple Intelligence on here, you have the Gimoji thing where you can make your own emojis. But I would say I would actually just lean more towards the A56, just simply because of the AI assistant, which most people are going to be using, and also Object Eraser, which is something that a lot of people might use. It's just better on the A56. So I would say if you're worried about like AI features, I would go with the A56. I'm a big fan of the Gemini. It's a lot smarter. Check out these speakers. We're at max volume. We'll start with the A56. We are not at max volume. Oh yeah, so the 16E has a way better speaker. The bass is way louder. The sound is a lot cleaner. It kind of makes the A56 speaker sound cheap in comparison. Yeah, it's like a day and night difference. Yeah, the 16E speakers are way better. Sound a lot better. Now, as far as the biometrics go and all this stuff, you have your Face ID, which works well on the 16E. But with the A56, we also get Face Unlock, but we also can take advantage of our fingerprint sensor as well. It's not ultrasonic, but it does work. I don't have an issue with it. Like, you just have to kind of hold it, and it's not even really hold it. It's not as fast as the ultrasonic, but it works. So I wouldn't have an issue with that. I like having the dual method of getting into your phone. All right, so the camera situation is interesting. You do have triple camera setup on the A56, but it's not a telephoto lens, it's a macro lens. So you really only have two cameras on the A56, the ultra wide, right? So let's talk about these specs. So you do have 50 megapixel standard, 12 megapixel ultra wide, 4K 30 video, and then a 12 megapixel selfie that shoots in 4K 30. The 16E does have a 48 megapixel standard lens, and then we can shoot in 4K 60 with a 12 megapixel selfie that also shoots in 4K 60. We have 10 times max zoom on here. We also have 10 times max zoom on the 16E. Alright guys, I am a big fan of the battery life on both of these phones. You get really, really good battery life on both of these phones here. So with the 16E, it's a 4,000 milliamp hour battery, and then we have also wireless charging at 7.5 watts here. Now with the A56 here, we have a 5,000 milliamp hour battery with 45 watt charging as well. Now I'm getting very good screen on time on both. I'm easily able to get like 6 hours of screen on time out of the 16E and the A56. They both do very good with standby time. So I think they're pretty much, kind of on par when it comes to screen on time. I don't think this is a big decision maker. They both do a really good job, and I do like that the A56 charges a lot faster. The A56 does lack wireless charging, unfortunately, so that's something to also, think about if you use wireless chargers a lot. But yeah, I'm not, upset at the battery life on both of these phones. They do a very good job. So which phone would you guys pick? Be sure to let me know. I'll catch you guys in the next one.